On your Thursday episode of Locked On Raptors, we get optimistic and ask, what would an overachievement for the Raptors look like while we still have time to not be doomers?
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Thursday, October the 17th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now going on 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on the Hell website that sucks at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors. You can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. Free to join. Come join the sickos in there. And breaking news, as of Monday, October the 21st, you will be able to read the Locked On Raptors daily newsletter written by this guy. I will be sending out links later in the week. So today, Friday, whatever. You can go subscribe ahead of time. And as of Monday, every single day in your inbox directly to you will be a Locked On Raptors newsletter. And there's going to be lots of fun stuff in there. Is Katie Heindl involved? Yes, Katie Heindl's involved. Also, daily sort of thoughts and takes and game recaps and stuff like that. Links to all the NBA coverage you could possibly want, podcast summaries and all that. Go check it out. I will have a link in the description of today's podcast, and I'll be pumping it out on all the socials and the Discord and stuff like that over the next few days as well. So yeah, breaking news off the top of the show. With that, let's get into today's show, which you can support by following, subscribing, rating, reviewing on the audio and video sides of things. And today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, where you can start the season with a big return. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we'll get started here on a show where we got some fun stuff lined up. At the end of the show, our pal Josh Lloyd, everyone's favorite Canada hater from Locked On Fantasy Basketball, is going to pop by. I asked him to go through and rip to shreds the Locked On Raptors Fantasy League draft. And you may be thinking, I don't care about your fantasy league. I'm not in it. Some of you are, but not most of you are not. That's okay, though, because Josh, A, is very entertaining as he rips us to shreds over our picks. And it's also some pretty good fantasy advice for anyone who is jumping into a draft before the season starts. So I think it's worth sticking around for. Before that, though, I want to get into the case for the Toronto Raptors overachieving this season. What would it look like? How do they get there? What are the indicators that suggest this could be a thing that happens for a team that most people think is not going to be very good? The Raptors themselves seem to not think they're going to be very good. And the odds are that they will not be very good. We've talked about this. This is a team that is pretty thin after their top 5 or 6. They don't have a really sort of coherent bench at the moment. Maybe that changes as guys find niches and roles, and Immanuel Quickley comes back, and you have him and Scottie Barnes to guide the ship in those second unit lineups. We'll see how that all transpires. But right now, this does not look like a team that's going to be very good. They're in an Eastern Conference that's very, very good in the top 7 or 8. And the bottom of the Eastern Conference is also very bad. And it feels like, are they going to be super, super terrible bad? If they want to be, they probably got to start doing that pretty early in the season to keep up with the likes of the Wizards and the Nets and the Pistons, et cetera, et cetera. I don't really think they're going to pull the chute that early, because they seem to actually want to play some coherent basketball for a while after not doing any of that last season. And so I want to get into today just, the case for why it could happen, get into what shape it would take. What does the team look like if 6 months from now they've won 38 games and are looking a little bit more spunky than we thought they might be? We'll dive into all of that today before we get to Josh Lloyd at the end. But let's get into just the sort of the philosophy of picking an overachiever, right? This happens every year in the NBA. The smartest people in the world, all of the podcasters, do their over-under picks. They do their projections for the season. And every single year, people are hilariously wrong about things. This is just how it goes. Teams get injuries. More wins become available to be grabbed by lesser likes in the league. You have, I think, sort of the most flawed area of NBA analysis to me, and this is just me sort of talking, is we're really, really good at talking about what has happened and using the numbers of what's happened to contextualize what's happened and really understand it. I think we're pretty bad at actually projecting forward what's going to happen. This applies to the draft, where every single year people miss hilariously on guys who they think will be good or not good, who then do the opposite. This happens with teams all the time where what has happened, this even happens, say like Kevin Pelton, for example, a wonderful basketball analyst over at ESPN, but his model takes past performance into account. And that's how they generate the projections going forward. Things change. Young players get better. Other guys age out. Declines are hard to predict, but they happen. Injuries take place. I think we're not all that good at predicting what's going to happen as much as we are reflecting upon what has happened. And so that leaves room for teams that you maybe don't think are going to be very good to be better than you thought, or vice versa. Teams we thought would be awesome, maybe take a step back. I think, in some cases, it's easier to predict. Like, the Boston Celtics, they're going to be really good. Yeah, they have a lot of really good players who are mostly, in their primes. They've got a beautifully deep team, all that stuff. Like, yeah, you can easily predict they're going to be good. But I do think when there are information gaps with teams, or there's the sort of young player incremental internal growth thing that we just have a hard time pinning down what it all means and what an individual guy's growth will mean within the context of a full team of other guys who maybe are taking their own steps as well. That's where it becomes really hard to predict stuff. And I think this Raptors team has some of the ingredients for a team that maybe performs better than it's expected they will 6 days here before the NBA season starts. And so I think where you start with the Raptors, look, the over-under is 30.5 wins. I think that's up one over the last week or so. It's creeped up a little bit. This is not a team that is expected to be very good. I think that 30.5, 31 wins, whatever it is that they are projected for here, that could still get them in the play-in because the bottom of the Eastern Conference is disastrously terrible and the top of the league is so good that I kind of just think the teams below the 10th seed are going to get absolutely demolished and win in the teens or mid to low 20s. It's going to be rough stuff for the Wizards. I think the Bulls are going to be an absolute disaster. I think the Hornets, if they don't get LaMelo Ball healthy, that's going to be a mess too. They're not super deep themselves. Obviously, the Pistons are the Pistons, and the Nets and the Wizards are the Nets and the Wizards. The Raptors could very well be in that group of teams, and they could even be the 10th seed and be considered part of that group of teams. That's totally on the table here. That's probably the most likely thing to happen. But this is a team where the case that young guys get better is kind of the case for why they could overachieve. Scottie Barnes is 23 years old. He's very good. And he's got a shot to be even better. We saw in that preseason game against the Celtics. Yes, it's the preseason. It doesn't matter. But he looked like the kind of guy who can take that jump towards NBA, all NBA level. Whether he makes the all NBA team or not, probably not because wins and all that stuff. But hey, like crazier things have happened. He has clearly an immense amount of talent. And if he can channel it all together and play in a team context that complements and suits him, which I think at least in the starting lineup, they have the makings of that, then there's a leap to be had from Scottie Barnes. Grady Dick is 20 years old. He's going to be better than he was as a rookie. He was not very good as a rookie, even though there were positive signs. Rookies are bad. Rookies lose minutes. And there's just real chance that Grady Dick still loses minutes. I think he'll be playing with better players this year. So maybe the impact is a little bit dampened, or sort of the negative impact is. He's a guy who does a lot to sort of complement the fit of the guys this team has. We talked about it on yesterday's show. Darko Rajakovic talked about it after the game against the Celtics. There's room for Grady Dick to make himself a clear NBA player, whether it's a long-term starter, long-term really good bench player, we'll have to see, but pretty encouraging signs so far in preseason. Immanuel Quickley is 25 years old, and maybe that's a little older in the tooth, but he's getting the keys to a team and sort of being asked to do a role that's not microwave bench scoring within an actual functional team context for the very first time. It's like abundantly clear to me nobody watched the Raptors last season after the whole thing fell to crap in January and beyond. That's fine. I wouldn't have watched the Raptors if I didn't have to. They were terrible. They were not a fun watch. But I think what Immanuel Quickley did, picking up point guard stuff and, kind of refining his craft as a lead ball handler within a wretched team context, is totally being overlooked. And I think there's a real chance he's a whole lot better than he is sort of viewed in the general consensus around the league right now. Because again, nobody watched him play for the Raptors last year, where he was a fundamentally different player than he was with the New York Knicks. Same goes for RJ Barrett, who is, again, 24 years old. I have my concerns about his defense and stuff like that, but I think the offense that we saw from him last year, it's been the same every single game he's played, essentially, for whatever team in whatever season. Preseason, Olympics, last year for the Raptors, he's done the same thing every game. I feel pretty good the offense is going to hold up the way it has. it just feels like something fundamentally has changed for RJ Barrett. And so you have those four guys, all of whom have the capacity to get better, all of whom fit one another very well, especially on the offensive end. Defensively, we'll see, but I think Jakob Poeltl helps, fill in a lot of the gaps there. If Scottie Barnes is taking a jump in wing defense or just kind of cementing what he did last year as a defensive playmaker, that's a decent back line for a defense that cannot be totally miserable when you factor in the fact that it seems like they're actually like trying to have a plan on defense this season. There's just like, again, there's always a team. There's always a team that doesn't seem like they're going to have the juice that has the juice. Hell, we've seen it with the Raptors before, and like the long-standing history of the Vegas odds just kind of failing to capture what the Raptors are going to do. They had like an 8-year run of hitting their Vegas over. We've seen it in the 21-22 season. They were a lot better than expected because things just clicked in a weird way. Sure, didn't sustain, but things clicked there. Scottie Barnes came in, and all of a sudden there was this rejuvenation after the Tampa season. We saw them in the championship defense season. They vastly overshot their over-under that year. They'd done it before. 2013-14 is another one. I'm a big believer in fit. I'm a big believer in like a team actually wanting to play with one another for 6 months of the year. And I think those things are way far advanced beyond where they were last year for this team. So again, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's likely, but there is a case here for the Toronto Raptors to overachieve this coming season. And I don't think it's crazy if they go and win somewhere in the high 30s and maybe flirt with 40 wins and are like a comfortable playing team and very clearly well above the morass of garbage below them in the Eastern Conference. Like that is on the table here where 6 months from now, we're feeling pretty good about, oh, this group made some real steps. There's something here worth investing in and keeping around. We'll come back on the other side to get into what it would look like, just sort of the shape of the team, the statistical profile. How does it all look? What does Scottie Barnes and Immanuel Quickley have to do with it? We'll get into that coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, the #1 sportsbook in North America. Go check them out. It's a great place. Come, throw down your money if that's the type of thing you like to do. And NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. It's that simple. You throw down $5, $200 in bonus bets to go and play around with. And hey, use those bonus bets on all kinds of things. If you're a football fan, you can do spreads or money lines or whatever you want for your football Sunday. And of course, the NBA season's getting rolling here. Maybe you have a feeling on a team hitting the over. Maybe you want to hit the Raptors over at 30.5. Maybe you want to hit the under at 30.5. Of course, on tomorrow's show, we'll talk about ways in which this goes very wrong and the under is very much in play. And so, yeah, go check them out over at FanDuel. Lots of ways to go and play if that's what your thing is. And again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, the #1 sportsbook in North America and the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Back at it here on your Thursday edition of Locked On Raptors as we, again, take a look at the case for the Raptors to overachieve, be one of these teams that comes out of the woodwork every year and is better than the whole world thinks they'll be. Because look, we're really bad at predicting stuff. We're just not good at this. We're all dum-dums. Like, I think it's a really important thing to go into this prognostication game with the knowledge that we're all idiots kind of working blind, because what comes next is not always going to mirror what's happened in the past. Either way, with the Raptors, what would it look like? What is the shape of the team if things work out well here? I think, #1, this is probably a team where it's offense first, where they are something approaching good on the offensive end. I think the pieces are there for it to be, a pretty respectable offensive team. We've talked about the offensive system they run. We can talk about playoff viability and stuff like that when we cross that bridge, hopefully, not too far from now. But as far as being a regular season, juggernaut, the system they have is conducive to that. I'm not saying they're going to go and be a top 5 offense or anything like that, but the way they play offense, it just generates good shots. That's how they play. It's entirely engineered to create good looks. And we saw this last year play out. The number I keep on referencing that gives me optimism that this offense can be better with healthier players and better players playing within it It's that they were number 6 in location effective field goal percentage after January 1st last year on cleaning the glass, the number that basically is like, what would you have shot if you were just average from all the places you took your shots from? Number 6 in the league. That's not nothing. And again, I think it speaks to the quality of the offensive system they've created and the looks it creates. And now hopefully the talent can start to match the quality of the shots. I don't think they're going to be, even if they're 6th again in location effective field goal percentage, I doubt their talent carries them to being number 6 in offense or better. But I do think it can be better than where they were last year, which was like near the bottom of the league on offense, despite having that really good offensive profile. I think if the shot diet and the shot profile is healthy, I think this team is going to have the talent to hang in the sort of fringes of the top 10, 12, 13, 14 in offense. And if you do that, that's a pretty good start on overachieving. Of course, you can't be totally hapless on defense like they were last year. And I don't think they will be necessarily. I think it's nice that they're just coming into the season with like a real declared focus on not sucking at defense, having more of a design plan. We'll see if this, ball pressure, high pickup points thing works. And if it really translates to better defense. I think, Davion Mitchell, Ochai Agbaji, if they're going to contribute, it's going to be on the defensive end. We know Jakob Poeltl and Scottie Barnes are very good defenders in their own right on the back end. Maybe you get, some incremental jumps. Like I just want to see Immanuel Quickley play because I do think there's something there for him to give as an on-ball guy chasing dudes around that he wasn't quite able to tap into last year or with his time in New York. But again, he's like a slithery dude. He's fast. He's long. I think there's a good defender in Quickley somewhere. And the fact that he's not going to be tasked with being a 100 pick and roll a game, every possession flows through me type of guy, maybe gives him enough gas in the tank to hang on both ends, like he talked about being a real priority for him in the offseason, to sort of building the conditioning up to be able to do both things at once. I think this is not going to be a team that jumps into the top 15 on defense. I think I'd be absolutely floored if that happened. I would not be floored if the offense was top 15. If the defense can go from abject disaster to just mere run-of-the-mill bad, maybe there's something there. And if you are 14th in offense and 21st in defense, like that's probably going to net you out somewhere around the middle of the pack in the NBA. It's probably going to put you in the high 30s win conversation, or at least the mid 30s win conversation, without much stress of, dropping out of the play-in. Although I know lots of people don't want to be in the play-in. Fair enough, whatever. They'll probably lose in the play-in anyway, and their record will be bad enough because the West is better that they'll have like the 8th or 9th pick regardless. So that seems like a perfect mix to me. Either way, I think there's also the argument that like maybe this team's due a little bit of health luck. I know they were super healthy back in the 22-23 season when they traded for Jakob Poeltl. And that was like an argument almost against them trading for Poeltl. It's like, man, they've been healthy and they stink. Like, what are we doing here? They didn't have health luck last year. We know that. They were injured. They lost their 2 best players for the last 2 months of the season to bad injuries. Poeltl missed a long stretch in January that was pretty damaging. Like, this was not a super healthy team. RJ Barrett missed some time with the knee thing. And so, it hasn't been a rollicking start in the health department so far. Maybe they get them all out early. Maybe it's the sign of things to come. Who knows? But if health luck happens, that's always going to be a thing that kind of elevates a win total for a team. Most teams get hurt. Most teams get the injury bug. Some teams don't get hurt. And all of a sudden, you're last year's Orlando Magic, who missed like no man games to injury, and you're the 4 seed. I'm not saying the Raptors are going to be the 4 seed, but I'm not even baking in like it's a jump from 25 wins to 37 wins, 38 wins I'm talking about here, not a 25 to 50 jump or anything like that. I don't think it's crazy that with some health luck and internal growth that can happen. The biggest internal growth, obviously, is Scottie Barnes. And if he makes the leap to All-NBA player, which the player we saw against the Boston Celtics on Tuesday, that is an All-NBA version of Scottie Barnes. It's got to happen every night. And there is no track record yet to suggest he can do that every single night. But there are plenty of flashes and moments and fits and starts and stretches where Scottie Barnes has shown he's capable of all NBA caliber basketball. He's going into year 4. He is now the dude. The team makes, maybe it's not perfect sense around him right now, but it's a whole lot more sensible around him than it used to be. The stage is set for Scottie Barnes to go make a leap here. And if he does, that's just going to, by the nature of how basketball is played and how it works, make the Raptors a better team than they're expected to be right now. Scottie Barnes of last year, again, yeah, this is probably not a very good team. He didn't drive, winning super positively when he was on the floor. They were a negative team when he was out there. They were better with him out there than off, for sure, by 4 points per 100 possessions. But still, he wasn't driving winning minutes when he was on the floor. If he starts to do that this year, the Raptors starters get some actual run together and can win some minutes and put up some numbers. There's a world in which Scottie Barnes, all NBA leap, it just all of a sudden the team is in a different stratosphere, because that's what happens when you have a star player. If you have one of the top 15 players in the league, which by nature being an all NBA guy is, that is going to mean that you are better than is expected to be when you don't have one of those guys. Again, I think it's going to be hard. If they don't have a great record, it's tough to make all NBA. But if he's playing the caliber of ball we saw in that preseason game, again, you got to capture that in the bottle and replicate it every single night. It's not easy to do. This has been the thing with Scottie Barnes. There have been waxings and wanings of his effectiveness, of his energy. But if he's forceful like that, that's an all-NBA version of Scottie. And that's the kind of dude who drags a team to way more wins than they're expected to get in the general consensus. I also think, I talked a little earlier, I do think the outside opinion of Immanuel Quickley is way too low. And again, I think it's partly due to sticker shock of the contract, where people have yet to figure out math and understand that $32.5 million for IQ is league average starter money at this point. And as his contract ages, it's going to be well below that. He doesn't have to do remarkable earth-moving things to become a very, adequately paid player who's living up to or exceeding the value of his contract. It's not going to be that hard as the cap goes up. And I just think, again, nobody watched the Toronto Raptors last season. He was, again, it was a terrible team context, playing with terrible basketball players for a lot of that time, for a team that was very clearly checked out. And yet he checked these little boxes for me, man, with the pick and roll creation, with the assist to turnover, 3.5 assist to turnover ratio. That's like Jose Calderon level stuff. He has the pull up shooting, the off ball shooting that we haven't seen in these parts since like the first half of Fred VanVleet's all-star season. It's just, he's got the juice, man. I think he's going to be an all-star. Probably not. It's hard to do. It's a very loaded position in the NBA, but he doesn't have to be an all-star to make it worth that contract. And if he is sort of a full season version of the guy he was last year after February 1st, where he averaged 19.5, 5 boards, 7 assists on 57% true shooting, which as a starting point within a horrible team context for a team that sucked, 57 is like league average, slightly above for a guard. That's not bad at all. You'll take that as a starting point on top of the way he just kind of fits into what their system asks of him, right? I think the interplay between him, Scottie, Pirtle, Grady, RJ Barrett is going to be really, really beautiful stuff to watch this year. And that is why I think, again, the impact of IQ in a new role where he's not just a microwave guy, it has yet to be realized by people who watch basketball, because people who watch basketball did not watch the Toronto Raptors last year because they did not play basketball. Either way, I think IQ and Scottie can raise the floor of this team if they kind of make the requisite jumps. We'll see what the Grady and RJ and the rest of it all means. Of course, maybe a rookie or two pops. Rookies don't help win games, obviously, but having some more functional depth would certainly help matters out. And I think Kelly Olynyk, Kelly Olynyk is a dude who got traded from the Jazz because he spent 2 years making the Jazz better than they wanted to be, or helping to make them better than they wanted to be. He's the guy who can raise a floor too, even though he's not much of a defensive asset at this point. I think they've got interesting ways and sort of creative ways to try to cover for that. Scottie Barnes helps solve a lot of problems when those two are playing together too. Jonathan Mobo, maybe he's in there. Chris Boucher, again, there's ways to work those lineups to sort of complement and cover for the things Kelly does good and not so good. Either way, again, the win ceiling for this team, I think I'd be shocked if they won more than 38 or 39 at the high end. If they did, amazing. You're laughing. You're feeling very good about what's next. And they probably go into the summer looking to make a big aggressive swing move, which would be awesome. If they are a 30-ish win team again, no one's going to be surprised. And they'll have a high pick to add to the mix. And then they can kind of reevaluate from there. But I think the idea that this team simply can't overachieve, that there's just no upward mobility for this team at all, that they can't contend with the Hawks, I think is, again, on the range of outcomes, this is in the top 10 to 15 percentile of outcomes, but it's on the table. And if it's on the table, it's worth taking some time to talk about. So that's it. We're going to leave it there. We'll come back on the other side, and we're going to get to our pal Josh Lloyd, who rips everyone to shreds over the Locked On Raptors fantasy basketball draft. It's a fun one. We'll get to that with our pal Josh to send you out on a light note on today's show. On tomorrow's show, I'm going to take a look at the other side here. The ways this thing goes really, really poorly and the Raptors win somewhere in the low 20s and are very much in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. We'll get to that on tomorrow's show. But first, we're going to get it to our pal Josh Lloyd coming up in just 1 sec. Today's show is brought to you by a new sponsor, Hims. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get a personal ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personal ED treatment options. HIMS.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products, which are not approved or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. All right, closing out here, let's throw it over to our pal Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball, who is real smart at fantasy basketball and real good at ripping all of us to shreds in the Locked On Raptors Fantasy League. Again, if you're not in the league, that's fine. You can hear what Josh has to think about our teams and also get yourself some pretty good fantasy info. Who not to take at various places, who took good guys in good spots as you go into your drafts this week. Hopefully it's got a dual purpose of embarrassing everyone who's in the league and helping out those who aren't. Let's get to it. What's up, Josh?
Sean tells me that you losers up in Canada had nothing else to do but to run a fantasy league for Locked On Raptors. So he said, have a look at this stuff and see what these guys can do. I go, Sean, mate, I'll take a look, but like, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about guys who have any idea what they're doing? So, well, most are from Canada. Okay, say no more. It's going to be terrible. So let's take a look at the teams that you guys drafted here for this Locked On Raptors Fantasy League. First of all, Sean obviously has got his team. We'll leave Sean's till later. We've got black and gold in here. We've got Green Giants. Maybe we'll just start with Green Giants team because he was the champion last season. Let's have a look, a bit of a squiz through and see if any of this makes sense. Any of those picks that I love. Ooh, we go a little bit deep in this league. That's interesting. You know what? Green Giant, well, you're not from Canada, so that makes sense that your team would actually be pretty strong. I won't say I'm a big fan of taking Jordan Clarkson or Marvin Bagley, but whatever. That's where we're at. Let's go to Kingsley's Court next, who I'll be fair to you, Kingsley's Court. D'Angelo Russell at 96. You lucked into it. Nice pick. Getting Scoot at 129 and Jaden Ivey at 128. They're good. You wouldn't happen to be a Raptors fan, would you, selecting Chris Boucher at 192? You sure? Don't know. Wow, Chris Paul at 161. After Terrence Mann, so you got Chris Paul, that's great, but you still took Terrence Mann ahead of him, which is insane. But that's okay. Let's look at Serge's 6-foot scarf, and you know what? Any Serge Ibaka scarf reference, I'm going to be in on. Let's see what you did. Did you draft a former Raptor? Yeah, there you go, Fred VanVleet. You went incredibly early on Herb Jones and Serge. Your scarf, it might be too tight around your neck. At least don't cover your mouth. That's where the poutine goes. 62 is an insane position to get Herb Jones. What are you doing? And you drafted Harrison Barnes as well, so I guess you're committed to losing, just like the Raptors. Well done. What else is going on in these drafts? Kawhi and Dime. Good name. Really good name. And I love the way you started. Luka at 4 is good. Jalen Williams at 36 is good. Hartenstein is good. Trey Murphy at 68. Maybe. He's injured. Maybe. We'll see. What else have we got? We've got the old Prestige Penis. Grade A Dick at 164. All right. Finney Smith at 196. Surely, my guy. I know that he's playing and he'll get some minutes, but you've got to get more upside at that pick. And as the last pick, who cares? But I'm just finding something to pick on. The Harvey Globetrotters. All of this, mate, looks pretty good. Drew too early. DeRozan, pretty good. Honestly, outside of taking Moose Knuckle legend Lou Dort, what else? Nah, it's good otherwise. It's good. I like it. Although, the Canadian stuff is funny here. Dort, Alexander Walker, Raptors legend Dennis Schroeder, Jonas Valanciunas, DeMar DeRozan. I see where you're at. Scottie Barnes, future Grote. Okay. I'm assuming this is not Scottie's ex-girlfriend drafting this team. What have you done there? Embiid at 6. Oh, honestly, Embiid at 6. Can't have it. Done. Your team's cooked. Did you guys not get the... do you have internet? Did you not get the news about Embiid? That he's injured? And he's going to be injured? Yikes. What else did you do? Another Canadian, Jamal Murray, of course you did. But to be fair, LeBron at 38 works well. Mark Williams at 123 is thievery. I love that. Terry Rozier at 155. Are the rest of these guys asleep? 155 for Terry Rozier. Oh, and I love it. You took my man Carlo Makovic at 187, who maybe he doesn't play, but otherwise, I like it. Let's get on to the rest of these. BT 406. What's the BT stand for? Not the 406 stands for. It's for the combined IQ of everyone in this league. Oh, not the BT is, though. Let's see what you did in this draft. Oh, Taylor Hendricks at 167 really slaps. I like that one. Toby Harris is good. Actually, you know what, my guy? Everything about this draft, I love it. I like all that. BT, bang, nailed it. Caruso for Giddey or both? All right, what are we doing? So you got Caruso, you got Giddey, you got Suggs. You got a lot of steals there with Suggs and Caruso. Wagner at 40 is maybe high, but I love the Towns value there. Reed Shepherd, I don't know, but I like the Calabali one. I like Misi at 200 as well. Skip to my Lou. Edwards at 9, way too early. Way too early. Too cold for you guys to make that sort of a pick. Şengün at 24 is good. Porter at 73, yeah, I don't know. He's... do they serve poop cookies at Tim Hortons? I reckon you might have eaten a few. Nas Reed at 88 is insanely high. Patrick Williams, absolutely throw that in the bin at 120, but then you sort of made up for it by getting Tyus at 137. And taking a Ben Simmons flyer at 169 is pretty good work. J. Rich, B-baller. Trae Young, Evan Mobley at 23. Ooh, a little high. Don't mind it. Edie at 74 is legitimately bonkers. What are we doing? Zach Edie at 74. What is happening? Khalil Ware at 106. That's your 7th best player, a rookie who might get 15 minutes a night. I don't know. Honestly, my guy. What is happening with this team? I'm scared to look down any further. Andrew Nembhard, 119. Canadian, of course. Jaden McDaniels, no. Ricochet, good. Davion Mitchell, Raptors homer. Sam Hauser and Jose Alvarado. I think, Jay Rich, I'm sorry to tell you, you might not win a single category all season. Trade Brown already Masai. I support this message. LaMelo at 22 could be a W. Kawhi at 43, still risky but fine. Yeah, everything else, let's look through. I'm not loving Portis at 118, but who's complaining? The rest of this is pretty strong, my guy. I think you did this really well. And then, now, this is Sean's team. Let's look at Sean's team. Primoz, Pastor, and Ross. Jalen Brunson at 12. Sean, it's a little early. It's a little early, mate. A little early. Jalen Johnson at 21 is incredibly early. So you're just leaning into the stupidity? 21? Jeez. Quickley at 44. Homer pick, but who cares? I actually like that one. Let's look at the rest. Keegan Murray at 76 feels early. Pirtle, I love it. Monk, solid. Jaquez at that spot is good. Noah Clowney at 181 is unbelievable good value from you, Sean. So you sort of resurrected it a little bit after going in early on the 2 Jalens early on. I don't know if you just had Jalen on your brain because you're reminiscing about the Jalen McDaniels years. And that's maybe what you did. Let's look at the last ones here. Black and gold. Running the Discord, I believe. Jimmy Harden at 20 is amazing. I don't love Brook Lopez at 84, but Miles Bridges at 77 is good. And Men Thompson, Alex Sarr, Jeremy... Oh, yeah, this team slaps. Unbelievable. Dyson Daniels at 173. I am in. And Matas Bozalis at 205. Good. Scottie is a center. Take Scottie at 14. Lillard maybe too high, but the value of Cade at 46 is great. I hate Jalen Green at 78. I hate Vooch at 51. What else is there? Anything? Yeah, the back of your draft is a little rough, but Strus will give value at 179. Team name pending is a great name. Don't change it. Just keep it, mate. Sabonis, good. Mitchell, solid. Siakam, former Raptor. And honestly, the rest is great. The rest is awesome. Mike Conley at 178 was... What? Were you all, rubbing your Huskies? What were you doing? Anyway, RJ Osmow's order. I'm sure there's a funny joke there, and it sounds like it's something funny, even if I don't get the joke. Booker and Shep, whatever. Miller at 48 feels high. Austin Reeves, Barrett, love them both. Keontae, Jeremy Grant, totally good there. Wiggins, Precious, Precious. You've seen Precious Achiuwa play, yeah? You're a Raptors. You've seen him play. You know what he's like. He's really bad. Well, Whitmore 176. I hope he gets a chance. You've taken a lot of flyers here. Whitmore, Castle, and Salan. Tijan Salan's been good. Look, who knows how these play out. But, anyway. For all of you guys who have struggled with electricity and internet connections, it is hard up in Canada and in Toronto. I get that. But you made it through. I suppose that's an artifact of having nothing to do in that country. So you've just got to focus on the NBA. Good luck for the season. Good luck listening to Sean on Locked On Raptors. And if you could let me know when you guys are going to shut everyone down in March, that would be awesome as well. Enjoy the season, guys. See ya.
Big thanks to Josh, of course, for checking in and doing all of that really, really mean stuff to all of us wonderful Canadians. We love how much he hates us. It's great. Either way, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. We'll be back again on Friday as we take a look at the other side of today's podcast, the case for a massive underachievement, a huge under, a really miserable season that ends in lottery balls aplenty. We'll get to that coming up tomorrow. A reminder, the Locked On Raptors newsletter is coming. Link in the description of the podcast to go and subscribe. It's free. It's free. You don't have to pay at all. It's just going to come to your inbox every day, and you'll get writing from me as well as links for all kinds of great stuff. Writing from Katie Heindel. It's a wonderful thing. Go check it out. And, of course, join us in the Discord. Link in the description of the podcast. It's great. Come hang out. We love you. We love the people in there. We love the sickos. Come be a sicko with us. And with that, we'll talk to you again Friday with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye. Can I go 8 from my last 9? Oh, my God. I'm unbelievable. Sign me up. Let's go.